To be in the line of succession, they have to be born by Meghan Markle. It has to be Prince Harry's child. They can't use a surrogate. And so people are saying, we deserve to know if these children are in the line of succession.
All right, let's get one thing straight. This isn't just another royal scandal. This could be the story that rewrites royal history. Because somewhere out there, a woman going only by the initials DL has come forward with a claim. She says she didn't just act as a surrogate for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. No, she says she is the biological mother of their two children, Archie and Lilibet. Before we get deeper into this wild story, take a second and subscribe. To this channel, we dive deep into the stories they don't want you to hear. Royal secrets, media manipulation, hidden truths. And trust me, this is one you'll want to follow until the very last word. Now, DL isn't talking about being a hired womb. She's not claiming she signed on for a transactional surrogacy job. She says these are her children, her eggs, her body, her deliveries. That changes everything, because under royal protocol, for a child to be in the line of succession, the birth must be legitimate and traceable. It has to come directly from the royal bloodline, no gray zones, no omissions. If her story is true, it throws the entire royal structure into question, not just Harry and Meghan's narrative, but the future of the monarchy itself. This isn't just celebrity drama, it's constitutional dynamite. DL says she has proof, and not just vague memories or random gossip. We're talking names, documents, signed non-disclosure agreements, hospital records from Colorado, digital trails, and even financial receipts linked to Meghan and Harry's team. She claims the entire operation was handled through a private California fertility clinic used by celebrities, quiet, discreet, untraceable. Until now, and here's the kicker, she says she was promised two things: privacy and payment, neither of which she received. What started as a carefully controlled arrangement has now exploded into chaos. According to DL, she was erased from the narrative, ghosted by the very people who promised protection. And now she's done being silent. She's reportedly working with lawyers. She's preparing a full release of evidence, timestamps, emails, legal contracts, and the most shocking piece, photos from the hospital during what she says was Archie's real birth. And just like that, every so-called conspiracy theory about Meghan Markle's pregnancies is back on the table. Remember the awkward baby bump videos? The folding belly on Australian TV? The suspicious timeline inconsistencies? The decision to skip the traditional hospital steps that every royal has taken before her? Back then, all of it was brushed off as tabloid noise or Meghan's desire for privacy. But with DL's story, those moments suddenly seem like the breadcrumbs to a much bigger cover-up. And let's not forget the editing of Archie's birth certificate, when Meghan's full name was suddenly removed and replaced with her royal title. At the time, the Sussexes claimed it was a clerical issue. But in this new light, some legal experts are saying that may have been a strategic move to avoid red flags. If a legal dispute ever surfaced over who gave birth, but there's more, because if DL really did carry and give birth to both Archie and Lilibet and Meghan never disclosed that, then the issue isn't just personal, it becomes a matter of public deception, of royal fraud. Asterisk, this isn't just a PR nightmare, it's a constitutional crisis waiting to erupt. You see, royal succession isn't ceremonial. It's a legal framework built on bloodlines, legitimacy, and transparency. Every title, every privilege, every future duty rests on one thing: who you are born to. If DL can prove that Meghan Markle was not the one who gave birth to Archie and Lilibet, and that no official surrogacy process was disclosed or legally documented, then those children may not be eligible for royal titles or, worse, succession. Think about the fallout. This isn't just a family scandal, it could alter the line to the British throne. Now, let's talk about Harry. For years, he's been painted as the rebel prince fleeing royal life to protect his family, his wife, his mental health. But if DL's claims are real, and Harry knew the truth the whole time, then that carefully built narrative begins to crack. He didn't just walk away from the crown, he helped fabricate a royal illusion. Imagine it. Harry beaming beside Meghan, on camera, rubbing her baby bump, talking about fatherhood and destiny, while fully aware that someone else was carrying his child behind the scenes. That's not love and bravery, that's performance, that's complicity, and it gets even darker. DL claims that when she agreed to the arrangement, she was promised complete anonymity and generous financial compensation. But once the babies were born, she says the Sussexes cut all contact. The money stopped, her name was erased. Her body, her story vanished. She stayed quiet at first, trusting that her silence would be enough. But as the years passed and her identity was scrubbed from every corner of the narrative, something shifted. Betrayal turned into resolve. And now, DL says she's coming forward, not for fame, but for truth. And for justice. Sources close to the situation say her legal team is already preparing a media package with hard proof. Not vague accusations, not clickbait headlines, but undeniable documentation. NDAs from 2018, bank transfers, hospital ID bracelets, staff testimony, and even biometric records. And once that drops, the story doesn't stay rumor anymore. It becomes a full-blown investigation. Now the palace is in panic mode. Insiders say lawyers are scrambling, drafting emergency strategies, reviewing succession laws, even consulting constitutional scholars. Because if it turns out the monarchy has recognized titles and status based on a fabrication, it's not just embarrassing, it's unprecedented. It calls into question the legitimacy of royal decisions made since Archie's birth in 2019. Meanwhile, the silence from Harry and Meghan is deafening. No public statements, no denials, no damage control. And for a couple who once clapped back at even the slightest headline, their sudden vanishing act speaks volumes. Meghan, especially once the queen of curated media appearances and hype interviews, has gone full ghost. No Instagram, no press events, no podcasts, nothing. It's as if she disappeared the moment the walls started shaking. Some insiders say it's a strategy to deflect, hope the storm passes. Others think she's just out of moves. But there's one more element to this mess that hasn't been fully addressed yet. This means for the monarchy's credibility worldwide, because while the British royal family is often treated like a cultural symbol, it's still very much a functioning institution, and that institution is built entirely on one thing: trust. If DL's story is proven true, questions would flood the halls of Parliament. Legal petitions would be filed, international media would demand answers, and all of it would lead back to one unthinkable question: was the royal family complicit in the cover-up? And what about the children, Archie and Lilibet? Two innocent kids thrust into a global spotlight, now surrounded by questions of legitimacy, identity, and lineage. If DL really is their mother, if the documents prove her claim, then these children have unknowingly become the center of a constitutional firestorm. DL, meanwhile, has gone from anonymous surrogate to one of the most controversial figures in the modern royal story. Her courage or calculated timing, depending on who you ask, is turning her into a household name. Some praise her bravery, but one thing is certain: she's forcing the world to revisit the story we were all sold. And now, with lawyers circling, media outlets investigating, and public curiosity at a boiling point, everything Harry and Meghan built is on the brink. Their brand, once based on honesty, healing, and liberation, is unraveling thread by thread. Oprah, Spotify, Netflix, all once allies are now staying quiet, likely waiting to see how deep the damage goes. Hollywood, too, is watching, away slowly. No one wants to be tied to a potential scandal of this magnitude. It's not about morals, it's about risk management. But let's not pretend this came out of nowhere. For years, rumors about Meghan's pregnancies floated in the background, dismissed as conspiracies. Ridiculed by mainstream media, people noticed strange inconsistencies: the stiff, unnatural movements, the perfectly staged birth announcements with no medical professionals in sight. All of it was explained away. Until now, DL's emergence puts those crazy theories in a new light. Suddenly, they're not just whispers, they're evidence, and what's perhaps most fascinating is how this entire saga fits into a larger cultural reckoning with truth, branding, and manipulation. Meghan and Harry position themselves as victims of racism, of media bullying, of royal tradition. But now, the narrative may be flipping, from victims to orchestrators, from oppressed to opportunists. And Harry, sources close to the couple say he's unraveling. Insomnia, anxiety, paranoia. He's reportedly clashing with Meghan behind the scenes, furious that this situation has spiraled out of control. He trusted the plan, trusted the secrecy, clippings, online forums, and tabloid leaks, desperately trying to stay ahead of the next twist. He's been spotted in Montecito alone, looking disheveled and distant, a far cry from the confident prince the world once admired. Meanwhile, Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, is said to be privately urging caution, pleading with her daughter to get ahead of the story before it devours them completely. But Meghan, always the strategist, is allegedly weighing her options: deny everything, discredit DL, or disappear and re-emerge with a new angle. Either way, the clock is ticking, and once DL's full legal file is made public, there's no going back. Asterisk, and that brings us to the heart of the matter: what happens next? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about two children or a single woman's claim. This is about the architecture of royalty, the machinery of image control, and the consequences of bending truth to fit a brand. If DL's legal team follows through on their promises and releases the full dossier, NDAs, financial documents, hospital photos, and direct communications with Meghan and Harry's team. This becomes a matter that the royal family can no longer ignore. Silence will no longer protect them. Denial won't be enough. The monarchy, already battered by scandal after scandal from Prince Andrew's disgrace to ongoing questions about that could undo centuries of tradition behind the scenes. Palisades are reportedly preparing for every scenario, from issuing vague public statements to calling emergency legal briefings. But what they fear most, sources say, is not the legal battle itself, it's the erosion of public trust. Because if this story gains traction and the evidence sticks, people won't just question Harry and Meghan. They'll start questioning the entire royal system. How could this have happened? How could a surrogate carry royal heirs without disclosure? Who signed off on it? Who looked the other way? And when trust goes, the monarchy's last real currency vanishes with it. Meanwhile, Meghan's former allies are eerily quiet. Oprah, who conducted the couple's most explosive interviewees, nowhere to be seen. Her production team is said to be scrambling behind the scenes, reassessing their involvement in the Sussex narrative, and Netflix, once so eager to bank on Meghan and Harry's story, is reportedly freezing future projects. No announcements, no trailers, just silence. Because in Hollywood, silence is the first sign of retreat. And speaking of retreat, Meghan has vanished. Not in a poetic, royal duties and hold way. No, she's physically disappeared from the public eye. Her team has gone dark. Her projects have stalled. And that famous media machine she used so effectively, it's gone radio silent. And perhaps that's because she knows what's coming. Insiders say Meghan is terrified not just of DL's documents, but of the questions they'll unleash. Questions she's not ready to answer. Questions like, why the secrecy? Why the erased certificates? Why the conflicting timelines? And most of all, why lie? Because this isn't just a personal story anymore. It's become political, legal, historic, and DL, once just a name behind sealed papers, is stepping into the light. According to sources close to her, she's not backing down. She's prepared for the scrutiny. She's prepared for the backlash, and she's ready to testify. Her lawyers are reportedly in discussions with investigative journalists, British legal counsel, and even constitutional scholars to ensure that when the truth drops, it lands with legal force. And she's not doing this for money. She's not launching a book or selling her story to the tabloids. In fact, DL has reportedly turned down several lucrative media offers. Why? Because she says this isn't about fame. It's about setting the record straight, about reclaiming her story, about giving her children yes. She still calls them that, the truth about who brought them into the world. And here's where the implications become even more chilling. If what DL claims is proven in a court of law, it could send shockwaves not only through the House of Windsor, but through global legal precedent. Never before has a constitutional monarchy faced a situation where a member of the royal family allegedly concealed the biological origins of heirs to the throne. This goes beyond the scope of family scandal. We're talking about potentially fraudulent documentation submitted to both the UK and US governments about misuse of titles, about royal benefits granted under false pretenses. Some legal scholars suggest that if deception is confirmed, the children's titles could be revoked and their position in the royal lineage completely erased. And that raises the question, did Meghan and Harry truly believe they'd never be found out? Or did they underestimate how deep public curiosity and now public outrage would eventually dig? Because the moment DL steps in front of a camera with proof in hand, the game changes. We're no longer talking about rumors. We're talking about evidence, and perhaps the most haunting part of all this, DL says she didn't want this to happen. She didn't want to go public. She wanted to be left alone to live her life in peace. But when the very people who promised her respect and protection abandoned her, erased her, and pretended she never existed, something inside her snapped. She says she watched from the sidelines as Meghan and Harry paraded their children on Netflix, in magazines, at speeches, knowing full well that her body carried them into the world. And yet, not a whisper, not a thank you, not a dime in follow-up compensation, just silence. And now her silence is over. And while the palace maintains a wall of strategic denial, insiders whisper that contingency plans are already being discussed. If things spiral further, the monarchy could issue a statement distancing itself from the Sussex children. Some even speculate that a full review of succession laws might be initiated, not just to address this case, but to prevent future ones like it. And in that possibility lies a deeper question. Can a modern monarchy, obsessed with tradition and image, survive a post-truth world? Harry and Meghan wanted to be the future of royalty, fresh, progressive, transparent. But now, their carefully built image is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. And what happens if the children, themselves, one day, want answers? What happens if Archie and Lilibet grow up and discover they've been at the center of a lie their entire lives? DL says she fears for that day, not because she wants to disrupt their lives, but because she knows they deserve the truth. She says every child has the right to know where they came from. Every child has the right to know who brought them into the world. And if the Sussexes won't give them that truth, she will. Asterisk. Now we're standing at the edge of something unprecedented. What began as whispered rumors on obscure forums has transformed into a full-blown crisis. And it all hinges on one woman, one voice, one truth that could append the most carefully protected narrative the modern monarchy has ever sold. DL says she has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. She's not just some woman seeking attention. She's someone who claims to have carried a legacy inside her. And the more we learn, the more the story feels less like a scandal and more like a reckoning. If this deception truly happened, if the palace, the Sussexes, and the entire machinery around them knowingly allowed the world to believe in a false birth narrative, then what else have we been told that isn't true? This story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Is royalty a symbol of tradition or a game of optics? Is transparency ever real when so much rides on illusion? And how many people were complicit in keeping this secret buried? What happens now is uncertain. Will DL go public? Will the legal documents be released? Will Parliament demand answers? Will the monarchy finally break its silence? And will Harry and Meghan be forced to admit to something they spent years hiding? No one knows for sure, but here's what we do know. The world is watching. The cracks in the royal fairy tale are widening. The trust, once granted so easily, is vanishing. And the people once enchanted by the story of a prince and his bride breaking away from the palace walls are now asking the questions no one dared speak before. Was it all a lie? And if it was, who pays the price? The children, the crown, or the truth itself? Whatever happens next, we'll be here to uncover it. Every document, every whisper, every revelation. Because in a world built on deception, the truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. And if you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel right now. We bring you the stories they don't want you to hear, raw, real, and unapologetic. There's more coming and you're not going to want to miss what happens next? Stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay tuned.